My name is Nadia Sood. I'm very happy today to be launching a new series called The View from the Roller Coaster, and delighted to have our first inaugural entrepreneur speaker with me today, Vineet Rai. I asked Vineet if he would agree to be interviewed because I consider him to be a maverick on many, many fronts. He's done things no one else has ever done. He's backed people no one else thought should be backed. He carved out a whole new discipline called impact investing before anyone knew what that meant, and did that from a very unusual position indeed. He's now in the fortunate or maybe unfortunate position of being the investor into a huge number of startups in India. He's recognized for the contribution he makes to the Indian startup ecosystem, the global startup ecosystem, as his work has taken him outside of India to Africa. I'm delighted to have him here, and we're going to talk about all the things an entrepreneur needs to know in these times that are so difficult. Welcome, Vineet.
Thank you, Nadia, for having me. And I'll start with the namaskar, given that in the COVID times, nobody wants to do a handshake. So,
can you tell us a little bit about your story? I like to hear people's stories, and I know that entrepreneurs like to hear other entrepreneur stories. So tell us about the early days, how you got started, and what got you to where you are today. And I think where you are today, I forgot to mention, you know, for the work you've done, you've been on the cover of Forbes India, you've been recognized all over the world, received lots of prizes, but I know at the beginning you had a humble start, and we'd love to hear about that and what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, I come from a classical middle-class family. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm a forester. I was trained to live in a forest. And right now I'm in a quarantine room, so living alone was not necessarily a new experience for me. But being a forester and then you get married, my wife didn't find the forest as enchanting. So I came out of the forest, looked for a job, didn't get any job calls for a long period of time, so took up a research job. And then was lucky enough to be invited to set up probably the first incubator for India in 1997. And I ran it for 4 years. It was a government incubator. My job was to convert innovations done by farmers into business. And at the end of it, I realized that ideas are dime a dozen, but if you want to bring about a real change, capital, which has huge ability to take risk, is probably the most important ingredient. And then talent, people who actually really can convert those ideas or help the person with the idea to build a business is equally important. Now, with this great idea, I quit my job. I was 29. My only problem was my largest pool of capital was $100. My entire life saving at that point of time was $100. Remember, I was in the forest and then I actually joined a government job. So not that I used to get paid much. So it was actually, one can say very stupid, or one can call me very brave. But I was too naive and too ignorant about how to live a life. And so when I jumped off, it was immediately after I resigned and stepped out, I realized what I have done is quite disastrous. Not for me so much, but for my family. Between the first 5 years were quite bad. I mean, I don't think so there were any month that passed without us thinking about how do you pay your house rent the next month. In 2009, I asked my wife, looking back, did you ever feel that we will actually be on the road? And amazingly, neither she nor I ever thought that we'll be on the road. So I think the strength of the whole discussion, what I would like to point out is my early days were more about not even thinking that the world is going to fall apart around us, which, as you can think today, when the whole world thinks the whole world is under lockdown, is a good thought process to have. Think that whatever you have, at the end of the day, are you alive? Until the time you are alive, you have an opportunity to change the world again.